that represents modern New Zealand.
Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and it is a privilege to rise and speak to the Lawyers and Conveyancers Amendment Bill. And I have a question at the outset of my contribution to this debate. And my question is simply this to the Government. Is this the brighter future? Is this what they meant when they campaigned on that slogan of a brighter future, taking us backwards with archaic references to privilege? Because that's what this bill in fact does, and I'm proud to stand up and say that Labor opposes this bill. We oppose being dragged backwards to an area of privilege and archaic protection, because that's all I can see in this bill. And I don't think it represents at all that idea that the government was trying to convince the country of, which I think they're finding harder and harder to maintain these days, that somehow they had a vision of this modern, this new future, a vision going forward, when in fact here they are once again bringing and wasting the time of this Parliament with a piece of legislation that actually takes us backwards. And it takes us backwards in a direction that I know the Labor Party doesn't stand for. And that is, it takes us back into an area of snobbery. That's the best word I can use to describe this actually. To use Parliament's time to change back to an old title. And I've yet to hear any government member give us the evil that we're trying to fix here. What is the wrong? What is the wrong that this bill is trying to fix? I haven't heard one example yet from a government member opposite about what the problem is, the practical problem. The really practical problem that everyday New Zealanders come across that is going to be fixed by changing the title Senior Counsel back to Queen's Counsel. What is it? What is the evil? What is the wrong? What is the problem that this is trying to fix? Because I cannot see it. And it was interesting to see that one of the few government members who has taken a call on this bill was Tim McIndoe from Hamilton. Now, I'm really surprised to hear Tim McIndoe get up and make an impassioned speech on this. I don't think this is what the people of Hamilton West sent him down to Parliament week after week to do, to get up and argue for privilege, as this bill does, and for snobbery. And for $40,000 a day, because that's what we heard from my colleague Andrew Little, that this title of Queen's Counsel apparently allows people to charge up to $40,000 a day for people, ordinary New Zealanders, to use them if they have this title after their name. Well, that's not what the vision that I have for the future of this country. But it is now showing quite a trend from this government, because just a few weeks ago they were protecting privilege by spending taxpayer money bailing out Wanganui Collegiate. And they were doing that just days after they had cut funding for special education schools, closed down special education schools, but put taxpayer money into protecting privilege through taxpayer money to keep Wanganui Collegiate going. And this bill reflects exactly that same situation, that same snobbery that comes from the national benches opposite. And here we are in the lead-up, in the final weeks before Parliament rises for Christmas. What is it in the justice portfolio that the government thinks is most important to spend its time on? Well, today it's changing a title. It's changing a title for legal representation. And in changing that title, they're spending time taking up Parliament's time to do something that if we kept it as senior counsel, there's a particular part of this bill that we wouldn't even need any longer, because senior counsel doesn't actually reflect gender. And this is unusual for me, because I'm going to argue here that we're doing a disservice by reflecting gender in this piece of legislation. Because by changing back from senior counsel, which doesn't have any gender connotation to it, to Queen's Counsel, we have to draft up and spend this country's money on actually changing a part of this law so that if suddenly we didn't have a queen but we had a king, we have to have a new section. We have to have a section in here to actually take account of that change in gender of a ruler in a distant land. And here we are today spending time doing that. Mr. Chair.
Lewis Wall.
Oh, kia ora, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.